Hello everyone, I am going to keep this video short. This is driving lesson number 8. I think I said it was driving lesson number 8 last video, but actually that was number 7. And what I did this week, I could say learned a lot. Let me tell you what I did this lesson differently. Well, first, last week when I had my lesson with the driver, I felt a lot of cognitive dissonance. What's cognitive dissonance? Well, dissonance, it's something. What's the opposite of dissonant? Dissonance is something congruent. I'm not sure if that's the exact antonym, but dissonance is when something is not agreeing. And I had thoughts that were conflicting. And it was about reversing the car. I was getting berated by the instructor, and he was actually swearing, which was annoying. And he was also swearing, wasn't even swearing in English, he was swearing in the other language that this country uses that I know how to actually I don't even know it doesn't exist. And it's not his problem or my problem. First, you have to visualize this properly, which is he's a brain, I'm a brain, we're two brains, and me, the brain, I'm asking him for information about reversing, and his brain just cannot give the answer to my questions. Okay, fact number 1. Fact number 2 is sometimes what the brain outputs, right, vocally, is higher tone than others. That's fact number 2. And fact number 3, I'm asking questions, I'm inquiring information from him. That's fact number 3 actually. Or if I had a third one, this would be number 4. You see, we laid out the facts, and really there's nothing emotional going on here. You're just asking a question, and it's for my self-interest, right? I'm asking the question for my self-interest because I want to make sure I know what I'm doing while reversing. Like, how does it benefit him? And I would be the odd one out, right? When actually I'm not making this narrative coherent, because I just said I would be the odd one out without explaining how my brain even calculated that. What I'm saying, let's pretend I didn't say that, I would be the odd one out. Now let's go a step further. Let's say we finish that lesson with that data that we got, with the facts. Now I gathered more data to, I just gathered facts from that one, actually not one lesson, I had 2 previous lessons, actually one previous lesson before this about this reversing and how he was berating and not answering and even swearing in the language which I just told you about. But that's expected, and remember, when you don't expect something, expect the unexpected. That's a very efficient algorithm, and I learned about this algorithm. Literally, I was in the garage. We have a garage. It's going to be I very soon only, and I don't want to be attached to nothing that isn't related to this environment that I'm in right now. Let me get back up from the side tangent. A book that I'm only saying this so you can understand it, brother had from school, and I it was an ICT book, and I never, give context, I never had ICT at school, which explains a lot. I never had ICT when I was at the age of 12 to 15. I didn't have any ICT, and that explains a lot from the missing context my brain has. Literally didn't even know that computer science existed up until about 6 months ago. Okay, 6 months ago, and I'm 22 years old. Just shows you how deprived my brain is, at least was. As I'm assuming it still is. It's another side tangent, and in this book there was written, expect the unexpected. There were chapters, in each chapter or topic there were these, I'm not sure if they're all successful, but there were some successful people and CEOs had these quotes on the top, and one of them was expect the unexpected, and it was very efficient, an efficient algorithm. You expect the unexpected. And now I forgot the reason I even went on this point of the expecting the unexpected. And let me go back to gathering the data after I gathered data from people who already drive the car. My brother drives the car, and even another person drives the car, and I ask them questions. Hey, how do you reverse the car? Right? I'm getting berated by I didn't give context on what's happening, but the car, tell me how you drive the car. And mind you, I'm not telling them this verbally. I would never want to associate myself with anyone in this environment. I don't want to relate to anyone. And what I did, I just wrote on my phone, hey, reverse, show me how to reverse X, Y, and Z. And I was asking questions as well about, hey, do you ask questions to your instructor? This doesn't make any sense when you reverse with this methodology. Guess what he said? No, I never even asked him one question. Actually, he didn't say I never asked him one question, but he said I never asked him any questions. That's what he said. And I found that, how would you not ask any questions, right? How are you going to learn if you're not asking any questions? I've asked him about a total of 50 plus questions from these lessons that I had. And probably half of them were in the first lesson. I think it's balance. Actually, I just calculated something in my brain, and I'm just saying maybe it's just balance without even telling you what I just calculated in my brain. That is something that is being worked on right now. That's what I'm talking about. Let me continue. I was talking about not asking questions, okay. And what method do you use? Guess what method he told me he used? The same exact method my instructor is using, which I could not figure out the reason he's using that method. And let me tell you the method that he's using. The method that he's using is, okay, you have the car diagonal to the other car, which that at first still didn't make sense, because my brain still has to process that information to calculate how that happens. And should I tell you how I managed to make it make sense in my brain? There are different things I want to let out right now. Maybe I should just list them. Actually, let me just continue with the method that he used. Diagonal to the car, then once you're diagonal, okay, you reverse, you turn the steering wheel once, which We know you when you turn the steering wheel, you're turning the front tires at an angle, okay, and it's 45 degrees. Actually, don't cite me on that. Let me. I think it's different for. I think it's not the same for every car, and that it's different if it's the tire which is the closest next to you versus the tire on the opposite end. And the reason for that, I forgot the exact physics, but let me. Car, turn, steering wheel, once to the right equals angle of tires question mark. Turning your steering wheel once to the right does not equal direct one-to-one angle for your tires. Because of variable steering ratios, turning the steering wheel one full circle 360 degrees will generally turn the front tires by about 15 to 25 degrees. Okay, we have the concept, which is you turn your wheels turn based on the steering wheel, and they turn at an angle, and you're diagonal to the car, and by that angle you can simulate where your car is going to go based on turning and pressing, connecting the engine to the tires. Okay, and right, connecting the engine to the tires, moving. Let's make it simple. Moving when your car is moving at that angle. That's step one. And step two, okay, you turn. Remember, if you keep on turning, then you're going to hit the car, right? Or the curb. What you do is while you're turning, you make sure once your body, this I didn't get it from him actually, I forgot what formula he used, but basically in my brain I was like, okay, you have 3 steps, 1, 2, 3. First step, diagonal, that made sense. And didn't make sense in the first time. And when I asked him, let's say the first lesson when I had this, when I asked him, hey, the reason diagonal, he just couldn't give me an answer. Hey, this is how I do it with this car. I was telling him, hey, I need to know to be able to apply it to any single car. Right? I want the isomorphic principle. I want the template that can be used for every single car. I want to actually learn and not have rote memorization based on your structure, which I don't know if it's efficient or not, right? Maybe I can drop the learning curve by half and actually, or make it slower, but be able to know what I'm doing, right? I have that predictive certainty and I can apply it to other cars and probably other machinery or engineering, anything that involves motion, right? And I could have this mental model. And actually, let me just fast forward and go back right to what we're explaining. From what I've learned, okay, let's keep it factual. From what I've learned, and when we say what I've learned, my brain was been inputted inside my brain, and okay, from what my brain has learned, the instructor, right, just doesn't have the answers. He's not a physicist, he's not an engineer. I was asking him a lot of questions and I discovered that he did know how to fix a car. Right, he knows how to fix a car. and knows how to work with the car's engine. I'm not sure if it goes deeper than that, because I asked about this in the first lesson actually, or the second, first or maybe or and the second, about the, hey, do you know how to fix a car, do you know how to do this, and what was the reason I was asking these questions? Is exploration. If I didn't ask those questions, I wouldn't be able to think right now with that information, because I wouldn't have that information. Now I could have more accurate assumptions, you could say, to test, hypotheses to test. And this is all basic knowledge to someone who is educated, right? Which is a whole other topic I can talk about. Education and your interpretation of the world, because right now I'm feeling very uneducated. And not being in university, I think is, I mean, it's not being in university, right? This is a whole other side tangent, which I think is very important. And should I get to it, let me just say the one most important thing: not every university is the same. That's it. Not every degree is the same. You can take different courses for the degree. You can have certifications after your degree. It's skills. You're going to school to build skills, and having access to resources. And connecting. Remember, you can connect to people. And the only reason you want to connect with people is to build something. That's it. Not entertainment, not having... I'm not even going to mention any of those. You could call them what should you call them? Let me just say my observation, okay? It's these words, dopaminergic words, that many consumers frequently use. When I say consumers, I'm talking about, this isn't even a proper observation, right? I'm limited to my observation. I don't go anywhere, literally, right? All I have is YouTube, which I do not watch anymore. I haven't watched YouTube in months. Okay, it's actually longer than that. But it also depends on what you're talking about. This is another side tangent. Let me just move that real quick. Let me just coach rules real quick. YouTube, I was using it for educational purposes. Example, knowing the mechanics of the car. Now, I thought that would be more efficient to know the parts. I was even looking at parts of the computer because I want to understand the computer's parts, because I want to program right now. I want to learn and progress through something. I want to progress to an objective, and that was something I want to talk about in this video as well. My objectives, what am I going to do? I'm realizing the brain just goes back and forth. Okay, you have these objectives, and now the discomfort is slowly vanishing, right? Now the objective suddenly is not so clear again, and now the brain is getting from the data it has around it, and it's intercepting the other brain data, the brain's data, the other data points in the brain that actually constitute into creation, right? Into growth. And the brain is using energy to remove those bad inputs in the brain. And what are those bad inputs? Example, someone talking in the other language, which I do not want to hear because it's very inefficient. I don't want to hear opinions which I've been hearing, and it's my fault, right? Example, this is a whole side tangent, and I didn't even finish talking about the car. And you go watch my other videos. I've been having these side tangents, and I said I'm going to have a short video on this, already 20 minutes long. let me. Okay, and let's talk about the car. Reversing. Reversing the car. We talked about the berating from the instructor, and now we had this last lesson. It's not the last one, but I told him we're not going to have another appointment until I'm going to do my theory first for the car. And let me continue to what I was saying about how I started this last lesson. What happened in this last lesson? Because that's what I usually do in these 1 week segments of videos on Saturday. Because it's after every lesson. Will I upload again? Yes. And I want to talk about my objectives as well. So therefore, let me go through this quickly about this lesson. I went through the lesson and I had these thoughts from last lesson of okay, reverse, I want to reverse. I had massive discomfort, and this discomfort it came literally. If you go to my positive, I have discomfort. Okay, I have an implant over here. And long story short, the implant is going to get removed and I'm going to expand my maxilla because it's narrow and my tongue is uncomfortable, right? And long term that's going to first make my function worse. Number two, aesthetically I'm going to look worse, right? And three, my objective is health. And since my objective is health, I'm going to need to make sure I'm healthy, right? If I'm not having the best sleep because I have a narrow maxilla, hey, I need to expand that maxilla. That's one part of my objectives, and I'm going to get this sorted out. And I'm not replacing the implant, I'm actually leaving a gap, but I'm closing it a bit more to be able, not for aesthetics, when it comes to teeth, I don't care anymore about aesthetics. What's the reason for that? I want cognitive focus to be able to study, because I realize if I die in the end, which I've repeated this every single video because it's very important, if I die in the end then nothing matters, and that's very important for you to know, because that's your biggest constraint. And when you compare that to everything else that you have, you start to realize, hey, I'm literally, could you say, wasting energy. I don't like to use that word. The reason I don't like to use the word wasting, because there are certain from my observations I've seen, we can say, consumers use this word, and I don't want to be related to any single thing from these observations that my brain had, because I know their end state, right? End state. I know what they're doing right now, and you see, my face is even having this disgusted look, because it's disgusting. It's disgusting when I think about it. It's very disgusting, and I do not want to relate to these people, right? To these brains. I don't want to do it with. Doesn't exist. What were we even talking about? Nothing, because it didn't exist. Because it doesn't exist. Because how can my brain interpret something that doesn't exist? See, I even forgot what I was talking about, because it doesn't exist. Now let's continue, and I'm getting this sorted out. And let's continue with the car, because I straight up what I was talking about. And the car out of the way, and okay, and we were talking about the objectives. Let's get the car first and then the objectives real quick. Okay, car, reversing, discomfort. My brain had these thoughts during the week, and I even went onto Claude. I think the same day or the next day I went onto Claude, and there was this new feature for designing something. You go on Claude and you can look at it, and that's all I know about it, by the way. It's designing and code. Let's continue. And I wrote down here I want simulation for the car, and I want to know the physics. And I created this simulation. It's probably already open source, and probably something much more in detail than that. But it's something that simulates the car into reversing, only for reversing, and you could have the simulation, which is perfect. In the simulation, a perfect. Where did this Claude, this artificial intelligence, get this information from? It was written textbook. Reversing, probably in open source websites, something that it had in its database already. And what subject would this be? Computer vision? Me thinking about this, you could say, is diminishing returns because I'm not educated, right? When you think about something, let's say you have three, sorry, this is a side tangent, but let me just talk about this real quick. Imagine, say you have three people. One of them is a PhD student, he knows everything about the subject, and he's contributing research into this field, right? New research into this field. And number two, you have a teenager who just could you say he's a high school student, because with high school courses, depending on which you take, you already cover most of the things needed to build something. Let's just take two examples, and let's say someone who is in primary school, right? Someone who is in primary school, this PhD person. Let's say we're talking about the subject mechanical engineering, right? And going physics, mathematics, and let's say he's calculating an angle for something where it's reversing. And the primary school student has some basic geometry, right? Knows about angles, but probably can't calculate this scenario, let's say, to make it. I haven't really shown a perfect example for what I'm trying to explain. That's because my brain is limited with data, right? And what I was saying is the two different brains, and one of them has more data than the other one. The PhD person knows a lot, let's assume he knows a lot about mathematics and the physics, and has resources, let's say, for being able to program this. Let's say he knows how to program as well. And let's say he has the resources, he could even save his notes and have mind maps and whatever tools he could use to make something in his brain, bring it to life, to create something. And let's say this creation, this objective that we're trying to have, is an automatic car. Let's say trying to have a car automatically reverse. The primary school student, okay, who's going to be able to create this program with the car reversing, automatic car, not program, just the real car reversing? Probably the PhD person, right? Because the primary school student has limited information, right? He doesn't have data in his brain. But let's say they both have this objective: hey, you need to build a car and have a program in this car. be able to reverse this car automatically. You're not even touching the steering. Just like it's an artificial intelligence car, like an automatic car, right? And that's computer vision. They use computer vision for it. Now, right, the primary school student has this objective as well, and he's thinking about it, versus the PhD student, he's thinking about it as well. They're both thinking about the same thing. But one of them has less data than this person. He has less data in their brain. And they're calculating something with missing data points, and let's say these data points are prerequisites to understanding this. And let's say you try to think about something without having the prerequisites. That's inefficient, right? And think about all the things that you're thinking about. And your brain is limited in perception to those things that you're thinking about, right? You're thinking about something, but your brain is limited in data in the brain to know the extent of what it's thinking about. And it's making assumptions based on the limited data it has. How can you make assumptions when you... Right? And what do? You do that heuristically, right? In your brain, go for a second and think about, have this scenario, have this concept I'm giving you when your brain is thinking about something. Thinking about something, and what's it thinking about? And literally don't react to anything your brain is calculating. And there are many assumptions. It depends which brain, right? Depends which brain. Not every brain has the assumptions. Some brains have algorithms where, right, you made it. For example, your brain is taught, right? You learned to control, to not assume and treat everything as a science test, experiment, test. I need to make this coherent. It's me talking is showing how really to put it simply, how uneducated my brain is, and that's factual. That's factual. It's not put it simply. It's actually factual. It's factual. My brain has limited data and doesn't have the data to be able to speak, present what my brain is thinking, or refine what my brain is thinking, and being able to communicate it to this audience. And through this camera right here. Okay, and thoughts. And we're talking about thoughts and controlling your thoughts. You have your brain, and you could have those thoughts running. Do you know where those come from? That's because, guess what? I've tested this on my own brain. Inputs. It's all about what your brain receives, and it's mostly sound. At least in my situation, it's mostly sound, acoustic related sound. And to explain it, it's not only sound, but it also opens senses in the brain. You start to realize that your brain is, it's neurons, right? It's neural pathways. usually the data is structured, is semantically categorized. Example, when you think, let's say, about a sandal, I only said that because there's a sandal right in front of me, your brain might start generating things that are associated with sandals. And you can test it yourself. You can test it, say a cat, say I'm thinking about a cat. You probably might even think about your cat, about last time you went to your friend's house, there was a cat that just came onto you. Oh, that cat that you've seen get hit on the road. You've seen that cat dead on the road. And even now, your brain is starting to think about patterns of how does that make sense? How does that work? How does that work? How does that work? And how does that work? It has those related things to the cat, and usually it could be in a hierarchical order. And usually it's the ones that are most salient in the brain, or at least were salient in the brain. And usually that salience is determined by, could you say emotion, by the emotion that your brain was feeling in that moment, or what was assigned with that data point. But wouldn't that be emotion as well? And when we say emotion, are we talking about hormones secreted in the brain? And what's the reason I'm even talking about this? I think I'm trying to get the objective reality for whatever you're thinking about, to understand something that is measurable for any thought that you have, to realize that what you're thinking isn't random, and when your brain is feeling emotional, it can be measured, and you can identify that measure. You can identify when your brain is going to get emotional, then even understand what is making you emotional. You can then, after even knowing that, even prevent those things that make your brain emotional. And this is where it connects with my situation, where I'm being around certain individuals which just have zero data that's valuable for me, right, and for my brain. It's the opposite that I want. Example, you try and ask a question, and they give their opinions for the question that you're asking. Yes, you did ask a question, and yes, expect that you're going to get opinions, and state that is just an observation and doesn't relate to you. It's just an observation. You see, that's a mistake for my brain to mistake that as something more than an observation. It's just an observation for a question that you tested. Your question, you tested that question, and I think it's very important to categorize. I had to close the window because I can smell someone smoking a cigarette, which is very unhealthy, and just increasing risk factors in you dying, right? Let's go back to what we were talking about. We were talking about how this connects to me, right? The data points. And being around brains that output information which doesn't align with you and actually goes against your algorithms, right? For example, thinking about something very as if there's no potential in what you're thinking about. For me to explain this, I would need to give concrete examples, and now it's 40 minutes. When I said I was going to have a short video, let me just talk about the car. What did I do today? You see, it's 40 minutes and I haven't even talked about what I did today. Should I re-upload the video? Maybe. It's just the same as writing. How many times do you write and have to rewrite? That's what you have to do, right? You go to MIT and see the writing guidelines, and it usually only comes when you I'm going on another side tangent. On the writing part, when I was writing, that's another side tangent, was for e-commerce, and when you try and learn for copywriting and then you have no guideline, but then you see MIT and then they validate you and they show, hey, a lot of writers rewrite. Now you say, okay, now this makes sense. Now it's validating for what I was doing. And you see, but even that, you're taking this the wrong way. You're thinking about it the wrong way, validating to what you're saying, and you're only taking action or doing it based on someone else doing it. You should never think like that, because what's going to happen when you have something that there's no data on? What, you're not going to do it just because there's no data about it? No, you have to have an objective, and you have the discomfort that you need to, that the discomfort is for something that's missing to reach that objective, and you need to have the solution for what's missing. Now let's continue with the car. And okay, today with the car and what I was thinking from last week, I had the thoughts, and I was thinking, okay, let me measure the front of the instructor's car with a measuring tape. And that's what I had in my brain. Even the brain had some assumptions, hey, this might happen, and no, stop, I'm going to test it. What's the worst that could happen? Does it involve me dying in this? Can I die from this? No. How? Unless, let's say you measure his car and then he would get angry for some reason for measuring his car, and then he would shoot you, right? But assuming he has no gun, then he can't hurt you, and you cannot die. Therefore, if you cannot die or get injured, then you're going to do it. Easy as that. What's the worst that could happen? Not want you as a student, and then you would have to restart all the lessons. And how many lessons do you have? 7, and that would be the 8th one, and the 8th one we finished today. And you could say that's a win, because I don't want to talk to this person, right? This brain, because what they output and that berating isn't. And what I did is I measured his car. I got a measuring tape, literally today, this lesson I got a measuring tape. At first I wanted the picture of the car, that's the most efficient thing, right? But it went naturally, actually. it was something unexpected. Number one, it was the car was actually turned the other way around. It wasn't the usual direction of the car, and what happened is, okay, I went, I had the measuring tape. And I didn't go as planned, right? I came out the car. I told him, hey, what car model is this? And he told me, oh, this is the Panda, and you've ridden this car many, many times before. And then I said, okay, I'm going to take a picture. Or okay, let me take a picture. You see, that's already, you already, can you say, asking for permission? Well, when I was asking this, I already had my camera open and I already made an algorithm in my brain that even if he denies me taking the picture of the car, I'm taking the picture of the car. Therefore, no. And literally in my brain, going to this, I was like, forget that I said I was like, before this, I had the objective, you could say, hey, I'm going to do what I planned, and I'm going to do it no matter what, because even assuming that denies, not even denies because I'm not going to ask for permission, but says, what are you doing, stop doing it, I'm going to keep on doing it because it doesn't harm anyone. And it's an algorithm, if it doesn't harm anyone, you just keep on doing it for your own benefit. Even though that could be an inefficient algorithm sometimes, because let's say you don't know that you don't have the information if it could harm someone, and you do it anyway because you think that it wouldn't harm someone, but actually it does. But that's an algorithm which is important, and you can improve and write down and improve, write down, improve, write down, improve. Let's continue to what we were talking about, and that was the I was taking a picture of the back of his car. Literally, he kept on walking. It's already anything the brain was talking about already out the window. That's it. And remember, your brain is going to generate information based on the data it has in its brain. That's it. If you have no idea, if you've never seen violence, violence will not exist. If you've never seen poor people would not exist. If you've never seen uneducated people would not exist. If you walked around naked in the street since you were a kid and nothing happened and actually you got dopamine from that, you're going to walk naked everywhere you go, unless you have the data not to do so. And not only not to do so, but it would be higher cost for you not to be naked on the street. If it's lower cost for you to be naked on the street, guess what? You're going to be naked on the street every single time you go and walk on the street, because it's the lowest cost for you. Lowest cost. Doesn't matter. This applies to everything. Lowest cost, highest cost. And it was higher cost for me not to do this test on this driving instructor. What did I do? Hey, I took the picture of the car. I had the picture of the car. Should I show it? Right, evidence. You have to show the evidence. That's Toyota Temper Light. tempered light might be for the glass. TP Ashi M2 13 AS2D CT dash 20 E643R dash 00033. We got that, and then took the picture, and then guess what he did? He asked why, and I think he asked why when I said I'm going to take a picture. And I took that picture, and then while I was walking, I told him I need it because I want to compare it. I think I said I want to know the difference and compare it to my car, and I think that's very important to say the difference and compare it. And different is, when you say difference, is salient, right, in the brain. When you hear something difference, again, I'm talking with limited knowledge. I'm getting diminishing returns, I think, thinking about this. I need to learn basic English. I think that's the problem, that I don't know basic English. And then I grabbed out my measuring tape. Actually, it was already in my hand, but I opened it and I have the measuring tape downstairs, and I started measuring the front of the car, and then I remember him looking at me but saying nothing. Him looking at me and him saying nothing, but I'm still measuring the car. I'm measuring how long it is, and it's 44 centimeters. I have it on my notes. And the time is actually wrong. What's here 44? 44 centimeters, that's the front of the car. And the reason I wanted to do that, at first I wanted to do it, right? I had this objective done about a week ago, right? This plan assigned a week ago, when after I felt the discomfort from that lesson, from the instructor berating. And what's the reason I used the word berating? Maybe the word shouting, maybe being aggressive, but it's all perception. Saying someone's being aggressive, no, you're perceiving it as being aggressive, right? Or maybe I just don't know proper English, and aggressive actually means aggressive is an adjective used to describe a person, animal, or action that shows a readiness to attack, confront, or dominate. You see, that's already the wrong term. It wasn't aggressiveness, but what we can say factually, a higher tone of voice, a higher frequency of voice, a higher amplitude of voice, right? You see, this is another part of not being educated, being able to describe this. Your interpretation, your perception of anything is limited to your education. If you don't know physics, if you can't explain these acoustic correlates, right, whatever is outputted from sound, everything that relates to sound, and the different variations of sound, and how, right, the tone. That's the reason I say acoustic correlates. And I only learned about the word saying acoustic correlates because I used to ask AI, hey, I want to try and understand and explain this, communicate this. Give me a word that I could say that acoustic correlates. And then you realize acoustic correlates is used in scientific papers, and that's where the artificial intelligence got it from. I measured the front, and what happened? Nothing. Just measured the front of the car. I took my time. I wrote down the number on my notes. I didn't take more time. I should have probably written down the title. The guy should have probably taken more time until he asked me, hey, what's taking you so long? I had to remove more assumptions of how long you think that person is going to take to say that person, the brain, the other brain. And just by doing that test, you just removed assumptions. And you just want to grab your brain and just throw it against the wall, because this is actually the wrong way to even think about it, because it's not your brain that you need to throw against the wall, it's the data that's being inputted inside your brain. You just have to go in an environment where there aren't these assumptions. And let me just give one example of the assumptions. That person I told you that I was talking about and asking questions of what you ask to the instructor, questions. Oh, I didn't, sorry, excuse my tone, I'm not going to change, let me just not change tone. I'm quoting, I didn't ask questions to the, this isn't verbatim, it's a paraphrase, because I forgot exactly how verbatim this was. I forgot the form of what I'm about to say as verbatim. Let me continue. He said, yeah, I didn't ask him questions. I never asked him questions. I didn't ask him questions. Okay. And then, later on, then he was saying, and then I think I asked him a question, and then he said, oh, if you asked these questions, but actually this was a different scenario, but still I asked the question, and he said, oh, if you ask these questions to the instructor, he'll probably kick you out. Do you see that? Do you see the poison you're being fed from your brain? You didn't even ask. You just got that fed in your brain. Someone just said you're probably going to get kicked out just by being asked that question. That was a major realization for how easily your brain could be poisoned and not realize where these thoughts are coming from. Imagine you hear that 60 times in a single day. That's what happens in school. And when I'm talking about school, I'm not talking about school. Okay, see, that was already communicated terribly. Because what I just did, I looked back at assumptions my brain has for past experiences in school, right? And I've just outputted that information without giving context on the calculation my brain just did, which creates confusion. And that's another source of confusion which is very common with many brains. Let me talk about the calculation that my brain heuristically had assumed, right? It's not factual, remember, this isn't factual, it's assumed hypotheses. It was, let's say, primary school. Not university, I've never been to university, therefore I can't speak, but I know people who have been to university, and I'm framing this in a very terrible way. As I've said before, I want to go to university. And what's the reason I'm even mentioning the university as a subject? I think I used school as a word because it's relatable, could be relatable, or see, I'm even saying it's relatable. How am I assuming that it's relatable? It's only relatable to my brain. It's not even relatable because I don't even want to associate myself with anything that relates to the prior brain state. But let's say, okay, primary school and assumptions. Say, okay, I know the reason now I know the reason why I use school, because, okay, let me just be clear. I have a brother and he goes to school and he has some education, right? You can say he's more educated than me, but he also outputs very. It's the anti-growth example. Mm, mm, mm. Example, how did it complaining? I'm complaining a lot and doing the general stuff, you could say, which is well, how does the brain complain? How does the brain do the general stuff? How does the brain know biology and chemistry and know some physics and know mathematics, but still do the generate stuff? How? It doesn't have data. That's the reason it doesn't have the data to be able to understand, to calculate the value. Probably finds it more valuable to go outside and, right, what's the reason I'm even using the word go outside? You can start to see the information in my. I think the best step for me is just read and do exercises related to English and mathematics. I think that's the best thing to do, and continue my e-commerce store and create that discomfort for programming, and I know Liquid and JavaScript where needed. For my prior stores, is it needed now? I could delegate the task to someone else. It's really creating that. I just want to move out, right? To move out this country. And literally right now, you're getting a snippet of my brain's wiring, thinking, connections, data, thinking, data. Let me talk about the objectives. What's the objectives? I had an objective, okay, school, and that's MIT, and economics and physics, double major. What was the reason you would even? And now I'm realizing, even seeing MIT's resources and library, and they have a lot of resources which I don't have access to, and they have labs which I would want to access, and you could probably still access it without being a student, but I just want to get out of this country, because this isn't the first time I had this. Even have all the prerequisites written down, and my subjects and all the prerequisites for the subject written down, and all the courses I would take in MIT all written down. I have it all planned out. And what did I have to do? Okay, what are the prerequisites to be able to enter MIT? And that's high school material, which I have all written down as well. And I have all the syllabus that I need to be able to get these exams. And what I don't have is the textbooks, but I have the textbooks for computer science. I have all of them, and up to the graduate level. I have economics, I don't have all of them. Physics, I don't have all of them. Right now, actually, I was doing mathematics. I actually do have high school AP physics. I have all of them. I have calculus, all of them. With the books that I downloaded online, I would be able to know calculus fully. And high school, at least the final 2 years of high school. But I don't have the textbooks prerequisite to that, and that's the current level my brain is in, right? Or at least parts of it. the foundation. I don't have the foundation for some parts, and I'm trying to structure my way. How would I structure what I learn? How would I structure my learning path? Do I, hey, study the A level, and what I don't understand, go to the foundations, learn about that, write them inside the notes, then go straight back to it until I could understand what I'm doing from what I was learning, right from syllabus. And I'm thinking about all of this, and you start to lose that desire, your brain, right? The desire or the discomfort to leave or simulate. Okay, I have the A levels. Now what? I don't think that's how it works. Now, if you have the A levels, now your brain perceives everything differently, right? Or not A levels. That's even the wrong way to think about it. Like that, you have the skills. Now you're able to think differently. Your brain thinks differently about how it looks. It thinks how it perceives everything. Building. Building. And I'm realizing the objective sometimes gets lost, and there's this whole process of having the objective, then losing your objective, and then going, right, having data, exploring data, then getting data in Google Docs, then organizing it, and again organizing it into your plan that you set, which was school. Then you have the job for this, and money, and I would start with e-commerce and SaaS. And we have the telos, as we said last video, which is the living forever. And these three right here, and then living forever, and how can we get to that? And the living forever isn't clear, and the prerequisites needed for that subject. I'm assuming you would need biology, chemistry, physics, mechanical and electrical engineering, and computer science. I'm assuming that, and knowing English and being able to communicate what you're talking about, and probably know a bit of Latin and Greek to make learning English easier, and what the data you're consuming easier to understand, right? Which I think would make everything more efficient. And I think, what are the things that I would need to study every single day, regardless of anything? Right? And I think English writing, that's one of them. Right? Regardless of whatever you're studying, you can study that right now, regardless of anything. And I think I should place that inside my schedule every day. I have my schedule that I would study 12 hours every day. And really, I wasn't having, example, today I didn't have high quality 12 hours, right? Actually, I haven't done 12 hours yet. And now I already spent 1 hour talking in this video, which, if we follow the plan, I don't have this in my plan because Saturday. But now next Saturday I'm not going to the driving lessons because I'm going to do my theory first. And delete. I'm going to end it here. I need to go eat. See, I need to go eat. I'm going to end it just because you're eating. What objective is that? Objective, losing the objective, having the lesson, English. Every single day, programming. You know we need to understand programming every single day. And let me just talk about the books I've downloaded. Today I've downloaded the engineering books. That was something that was missing. I downloaded an engineering and electrical engineering book, and let me stop right there. I was talking about the discomfort that I was feeling because I was having discomfort I was feeling for the 12 hours. The reason I wasn't getting 12 hours high quality was because of the chair. I don't have a comfortable chair. And sitting and standing for 12 hours isn't the most comfortable. And what I am planning is maybe I can get wooden parts and create my own chair. And only do that as a prerequisite to learning engineering. And but again, that's based on feelings, not really an objective set plan. We already have the school objective plan done. Now you just have to study. But you still don't have all the textbooks that you know if you studied would have the answers. And assuming even you get all of that, you still don't have the skill. Hey, I'm making money. Even though we made money from e-commerce but then stopped. And now maybe not even start studying but continue e-commerce, having the discomfort. And okay, that's all the data we have. And then once you created that discomfort, now you can build. Because I had the discomfort as well, where I didn't have the technology as well. I didn't have a computer that could even start Facebook ads. Because it had too high memory usage, and I want to have 16 gigabytes on this and the other laptop, and now I have a MacBook Pro that has 40 gigabytes of memory, and I'll be able to run many programs and even simulate building something. Maybe that's the path that I'm going to take. And programming languages, JavaScript, C++, PowerShell. I wanted to do PowerShell to be able to structure what files I have on this PC and my other laptop, and have everything on hard drives which I bought. And restructuring the documents that I have for my objectives and updating my objectives. Right? That doesn't create the plan. Update the plan. The reason you're doing all of this is not to die. And again, this is the back end for trying to find that desire, that discomfort to be able to learn. And you're in an environment, but you're also in an environment that you're getting inputs which you're not even asking for, right? I'm hearing noise right now from people talking, people laughing, even at night, music, opening the window, smoking. Me being, I don't have income and control. You just don't have control. You want control. You want to be able to control what goes into your brain. You want to be able to be around people that are innovators and want to build, right? Not consume. And have their actions done based on a long-term goal, not just to live. doing something and then doing something. I need to end it. It's 1 hour and 16 minutes. I have a lot to improve on. Communication, my English writing, my plan, to crystallize my plan, and have to even start closing the. I have a lot of tabs open, and this is all to learn about the computer and trying to construct something, build something from the knowledge that, from the books that I have, and from the maths, the physics, the computer science, from the chemistry and biology. What can I build something? I want something built. I want something built. I want something. I want to know how something is built. How is something built? What was the reason you want to even know that, right? Do I have to assign the reason I want to learn something and how that contributes to my long-term objective? Probably you do. But you probably not, you don't do it to individual things, but you find the isomorphic template that is able to apply to a broad category. But when applied to that category and you learn that thing under that category, you won't question the reason you're learning that for your objective, because you know what contributes based on the category that you assigned, that it would contribute to that. Is that a reflection of how reality works? Maybe and maybe not. And how would you be able to learn that? Testing. Not experience, but testing. It's testing. You test, and yes, that everything is experience. You listening to something is experience. You talking and listening to your talking, that's experience. You seeing something visually is experience. You touching something is experience. They're all sensory inputs. Experience is sensory inputs. If you're going to use the word experience to describe something else, right, if I type in experience definition, refers to the practical knowledge, skills, or wisdom gained from direct observation, participation, or living through events. Right, that's sensory inputs. Using the word experience is vague, and yes, when you talk to your colleagues, for example, not colleagues, when you say colleagues, you're talking from an employee perspective. When talking to your employees, right? When talking to other business owners, when talking to other successful business owners, when talking to someone, to a professional, to someone that's a professional in their field, right? And they've studied a lot and they've been a doctor for, let's say doctor, whatever it would be, whatever. Experience is still not the right word. You could have a doctor that has 20 years experience and 20 years experience in another doctor and still be totally different doctors, because they have different principles, different algorithms, they have different skills. Yes, they have the same base foundation of knowing biology, but that doesn't reflect the real world. Really, as a doctor, what are you doing? Surgeries and using medicine. That's all you're doing. The knowing about the biology is the knowing the positioning, you could say, knowing the things found inside the body. But and that could lead to creation, right? Knowing the variables inside the biological system. But even when you see a doctor example, this is going too ahead. This is going too. It's going out of context, you could say, out of context for what I intended this video to be, and it really shows how uneducated my brain is. And now I'm actually going to end it, and I'm going to give 10 seconds, and that's it. I'm going to eat and go study. That's it.